After recently revealing his intention to bear the SDF flag in the race for the presidency next year, Chairman John Fru Ndi is claiming the headlines once again. According to the Post newspaper, he has lashed out against critics, warning them to leave the SDF alone before it becomes too late. And then elsewhere, we question the perceived aloofness reserved the protracting Anglophone crisis by Cameroon's former colonial masters, including especially the UK and France, as well as Germany, and then to an extent, the United States of America. Kindly make yourselves comfortable as we now fold sleeves to launch discussions in a moment. The Tough Talkers are all here once again. Kejan Henry Atembe, let's start with you. Good morning.
Good morning, Divine, and to our televiewers out there, millions watching us across the globe.
Have you been reading some of the reactions on the YouTube page created by Elie Smith?
Yes, I've been reading them, and the flow in thousands, so it's difficult to go through all. But then the avalanche is already
reactions from some
reactions is already a pointer to the fact that Newsroom, Toughtalk,
Toughtalk
has gathered steam. In fact, has reached a point where it becomes difficult for people to go a day without Toughtalk.
Have you read some of those reactions mentioning you, especially? Some people say you are increasingly dodgy.
Well, not dodging. Generally, I have a way of answering questions that I always come to the answer. But sometimes I always answer my questions such that I allow my listeners to reason before reacting.
Okay.
And that is probably my approach. I give them the philosophical approach to understand why is he saying these things this way.
Okay. Now, so after our last edition of Tough Talk, one of those reactions actually concerned the host, and that's me.
Oh, come on.
Well, the reactor actually said that I needed to do more research because I only named Skakov and more risk when we talked about the Cameroon Anglophone diaspora pressing for support of the struggle. But then I just thought we actually dealt with Skakov and more risk, so there was no need to go researching the others who are not planning to designate or elect or nominate leaders of these various organizations. Elie Smith is a tough job loading those videos onto YouTube every now and then. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Divine. It's tough, especially that we don't have a very good internet connection. What we have to do is to spend the night here to be certain that the program is going to be uploaded. So we try to do that sacrifice because we have a teeming population abroad who are really happy with this program. And I have always told them that, you know, in life, you need to have the humility and the courage to always apportion praises to those who are due. And I always tell them that the person who brought this program, the idea behind this program is you, and that if today it is gathering steam, you deserve all the praise. And I'm happy because we are really satisfying our population abroad, even though this time around, you know, as the programs are growing, people sometimes are not really satisfied because of, for example, when we're treating this thing on the Anglophone problem, some people think that we are not supportive enough, and others also, because there's one message that said that why are we talking about the division within the Anglophone nationalists?
As if we are here to the course of the Anglophone hardliners. That's not our job.
That's not our job. Our job is, we are journalists. Where we think that they are correct, we will always say they are correct. Where we think they are wrong, we are going to say they are wrong. It's not simply because we harp on the government of Cameroon, which is very irresponsible, means that if one day, well, we always wish that if one day they happen to do one good thing,
we should not talk about.
If they do one good thing, Paul Biya will say he has done it, but as far as I'm concerned, he has always been doing bad things. So when the day he'll do one thing which is correct, we are going to appreciate it.
And of course, one good thing, Elie Smith, is that Cameco is Cameroon's lone national carrier, is well, folding sleeves to formally launch flights, regular flights to Bamenda. That's the headquarters of Cameroon's English-speaking Northwest region on July the 20th. And so standing by with the bus for this edition will be Gina Leke. We're going to have Tabi Clarkson, our Yaoundé correspondent, filing from there. We will also have SDF chairman John Fru Ndi himself. He will be joining us by phone from Bamenda in about 25 minutes from now. And so after weeks, and this is our first sticking point, after about 6 weeks of sustained acrimony, contentious declarations, and animated blame trading, the Catholic Church has finally taken possession of the remains of Bishop Jean-Marie Benoit Bala, who disappeared on May the 31st, and his remains were actually hauled from the river Sanaga at around Ebebda about 3 days later. Keja Henry, I'll come back to you. The corpse removal from the mortuary of the Yaoundé General Hospital on Monday, am I correct? Yes, Monday, July the 17th,
yes,
unfolded amidst heavy security. And curiously, a bailiff invited by the bishops of Cameroon, or the Roman Catholic Church, and their representatives at that ceremony, even though it was a sad event anyway, was denied access to the mortuary.
Yes.
Does that fuel suspicion?
It does, because we don't understand why a bailiff that needs, because it was, first of all, an issue of identifying the corpse before accepting to you know, like you said, recuperate. Right. So the bailiff was supposed to be there to attest that, okay, this is the corpse of Monsignor Bala, and called on the church, that is the bishops, to, you know, withdraw the corpse. Now, denying bail is more and more suspicious.
Denying access to
the bailiff is more and more suspicion on the part of the government, because don't forget that till date there is still news that the corpse of the bishop, or the autopsy result, is not what was conducted on the bishop's corpse. That there was another corpse where an autopsy result was conducted. And the people now, well, the government actually influenced those forensic experts to produce the report that they sent, that was dished out to the public by Justice John Fru Ndi. So there is still suspicion about the death of the bishop, and the bishop of the Episcopal Conference are still standing their grounds.
Okay. Now, just to tell our viewers that one of the siblings or relative to the late Bishop Bala actually testified that the corpse that was recuperated from the mortuary of the Yaoundé General Hospital was exactly that of the deceased bishop. Turning over to Elie Smith, previous reports hinted that the Episcopal Conference of Cameroon, which actually represents the Catholic Church in this matter, was unwilling to collect the corpse until the inquiry launched by the state of Cameroon, or the authorities, came to its due end. But at this point in time, when they accept to take possession of the remains of the late man of God, do you see this as the church buckling under pressure from the government, or the hidden forces behind the suspected murder of the priest?
Yes and no. Yes, is that, you know, the church is in submission to the church, to the government, so the government can mount them pressure. But on the other hand, since the church through Samuel Kleda has unequivocally rejected the autopsy, or the preliminary autopsy from the Attorney General of the Central Province, I think that they can also take the remains and decide also to conduct their own autopsy if they do so desire. That is my own take on that.
Okay. Keja Henry, I'll just bring the same question to you. The decision by the church to finally take possession of the remains of the man of God, is that to you a kind of defeatist backpedal? Has the church caved in under pressure?
No, the church, I don't think so. Normally, he deserves a burial, befitting burial, and keeping him for long will not probably solve the problem. I think the church actually accepted.
But burying him now may mean burying him with all the evidence that could prove.
Yes, because the church has already said that, well, he was brutally assassinated, so keeping the corpse again will not probably help our situation, especially as the people need a shepherd soon.
Okay, and the church says, well, that's the communique from Monsignor Samuel Kleda, who's the chair of the Episcopal Conference of Cameroon. He says the the Catholic Church in Cameroon will file a lawsuit against X. How far can they go with this?
They can go through it, and it is normal, which means that the Catholic Church doesn't believe anything that comes from the mouth of the government. Hence, they are trying to file a lawsuit because they think that in doing so, any kind of secret that was officially hidden might be exposed, because when there's a trial, it is not a secret trial, it is going to be open. That's the reason why they are doing that. And the thing is, from the onset, you know, I don't even care, so honestly speaking, about the second autopsy that was done. The first one was carried out by Cameroonian medical experts with a representation of the Episcopal Conference, if I'm not wrong. And the result came out that, according to Samuel Cleda, he was brutally murdered. I think the government felt that it will paint an already black image blacker, hence they wanted to atone or try to give themselves a kind of facelift. But it hasn't worked because nobody believes in this government divine. Nobody believes in them, and I think it is time for the bishop who was brutally assassinated, in the words of Samuel Cleda and the Episcopal Conference, to be laid to rest. And we know that this government, it is not the first time that they are killing men of God.
Right.
I have given you a litany. There is one, the only one they were absolved of is Monseigneur Albert Veng. Right. That according to Angel Veng, according to Pierre Elie in his book, because we need to quote people who have written something, in his book Dossier Noir sur le Cameroun, he says that it was not the government of Cameroon or Paul Biya's government that assassinated Angel Veng, but the French government, who wanted to destabilize the regime of Biya, because Biya was trying to leave the track of being entirely under the whims and caprices of Paris, and was opening up to Israel. And when they say, when you open up to Israel, it means America is not very far from it. And since then, the French felt that, and still they still think that Cameroon is their farm. They have to have an entire or
possession,
complete control.
Okay, I'll just prolong your list, Elie Smith. There was Monseigneur Jean Zoa of Yaoundé. He passed away on the 4th of February 1998. Monseigneur Wu King on the 10th of November 2002. And much more recently, Monseigneur Tonye Bakot Victor. Keja Henry, Monseigneur Samuel Cleda has claimed several times in tough terms that the church is in possession of incontrovertible evidence which will attest to the fact that Monseigneur Bala was brutally murdered. Why not spill the beans at this point in time? I think information secret.
I think they wanted to, because they have said he was brutally murdered. I think they wanted to get the murderers, and that is why they have filed a lawsuit against an unknown, which means if the unknown comes, then they will spill out the beans. If they get the unknown, they will now come out with the rest of the evidence that they have in their sleeves.
Okay.
So generally, if you get up in the morning and you find out your door is broken, you file a lawsuit against an unknown. At the end of the day, the unknown will be known, and that is why you probably come up with a list of what you've lost. So I think they are still keeping their cat on their joker under their arm to wait for when the lawsuit will come over.
Okay, so funeral ceremony or service has been slated to span August the 2nd to the 3rd in Bafia. Elie Smith, do you expect President Paul Biya to answer present at such a ceremony? He's highly expected to make a statement on this matter anyway.
Well, except there's a kind of seismic change. The man doesn't change. If he has not been able to attend other major ceremonies, funerals, something, I don't think why he will do that. If he does that, and mark my word, it's simply because next year there's a presidential election. And he knows that he has indirectly aggrieved a lot of Christians. So it is a kind of way, if at all he does it, which I doubt, is to try to calm down the tempers of the Christian community of this country, especially of his base in the central region. Because remember, that man comes from the greater Beti land. You know, this is a government that governs on tribal basis. So I doubt whether he's going to attend it. But if he does, it's simply not because he loves that man a lot. It's simply because he's just politicking in advance.
Henry Kejan, can the church muster the guts to keep any government representative away from the funeral service?
No, you know,
is it possible?
It will not be possible.
If the authorities could deny access to the mortuary to a bailiff, can the church now retaliate by saying that we don't want any representative attending our funeral?
The church is a church of forgiveness.
Okay.
The church preaches forgiveness. If it were a traditional ceremony, I will bet you they will not even tolerate one of the government officials. But sometimes, since the church is just coming out from the sub-regional Episcopal Conference, I think they were preaching forgiveness, love as a key, you know, to stability. The church will probably accept an avalanche of government functionaries, people from all over the world, to be part of the burial.
Okay, I think I will just take a respite, and when we come back, we'll be looking at our first big sticking point. It is about Fru Ndi's lashing out against critics to leave his party, the SDF, alone before it becomes too late. Let's take a break. And so his stance on the evolving Anglophone crisis, his differences with the tough-talking Honorable Joseph Weber, and insinuations that the SDF is being bankrolled secretly by the governing CPDM party have all contributed in placing SDF chairman John Fru Ndi at the core of heavy criticism from hardliners of the Anglophone cause. In response, and upon return from a month-long trip abroad, Kejan Henry, John Fru Ndi has fired back, warning his detractors to leave the SDF alone before it becomes too late. I don't know what he puts in before it becomes too late. Yeah. What meaning do you read into such an admonition anyway?
Because he's been at the forefront of attack recently, ever since the crisis erupted, and
the Anglophone crisis.
The Anglophone crisis, to be very precise. And his detractors think that, or rather Fru Ndi thinks that his detractors have not left him because they are saying, as the major leader of the opposition party, he should be able to come out and say something. One, as an Anglophone, and two, as a very influential political figure in the country, and that he has not been able to make a statement. So I don't want to say whether or not he has been able to make a statement. Since you've announced that you are going to call him, he'll be the one to probably say what he thinks his detractors have against him.
All right. I think at the start of the Anglophone crisis, John Fru Ndi actually told Cameroonians that he was in support of the lawyers and the teachers. But apart from the verbal support, nothing concrete was seen on the ground. Elie Smith, it sounds ridiculous for the chairman to tell his detractors to leave the SDF alone before it is too late. This is like a verbal scaremongering, and it may just end there.
It may just end there, but I find it's not fair on the part of the chairman of the SDF to say such thing. I think last time I said something here again, and I'm going to repeat it. I have an unalloyed support, and I love this man, because if today you and I, we three thumb men, are here speaking freely, it's because of the utmost sacrifices that he did and he is still doing.
Okay.
But I still think there is a problem. And I said last week, and I'll repeat it again, I don't want John Fru Ndi to become second Gbagbo, second Ouattara, no, second Abdoulaye Wade, or second Ouattara, second Alpha Condé. I want him to be Tony Leon. Tony Leon was this man who stood against Nelson Mandela, and when he lost, he bowed out of the picture or the thing and allowed somebody else to come over. His insinuation for a party which is a populist party like his, for a party that has had a large amount of support from the diaspora, if what the Post wrote comes from him, then it also shows that what I've always been saying here is that the man has grown old, the demographics is not there, he has a blurred reading of things. Then it is time for him to pass the baton, if really he is the author of that phrase that the diaspora or people should leave the SDF alone, then he is absolutely wrong. I understand that, all right, they might have said a number of things, but he knows very well that on the onset, he and the SDF, except some rare birds like Wirba, he has been very lukewarm on this thing. To say the contrary is that we are not doing justice to him. And when you love somebody, it's tough love. We have to be courageous enough to tell the truth to John Fru Ndi that the diaspora has been helping him a lot. He should not do such utterances. Then he should come out clear and tell us really what it is problem. Why should the diaspora not talk to him? Okay. Has he become a dictator whereby if you say something to him, he gets angry with you? Then if that is the case, then perhaps the rumors that have been always peddled around about him, there might be some element of truth in it.
Now, well, the Post newspaper actually quotes Chairman John Fru Ndi saying that while at the Bangala hospital, that's in India, medics checking his health were surprised that at the age of 76, he could still be as acrobatic as a man in his 50s. Now, Kejan Henry, some analysts have interpreted this to mean that he is, attempting to dismiss claims that he is too old to continue running the SDF.
Yeah. I like the way they put it. So at 76, he's acrobatic. So we can now call
like a man in his 50s.
The acrobatic Fru Ndi. That could be a good newspaper title. Well, don't forget that politicians have been playing that game. I remember when people thought that he was almost aging and fading out of the political scene, Paul Biya went to Kribi and had a ride on his bicycle. He's a cyclist. I think that is his best sport, the best sport he likes. When they thought that all is almost finished for him, Blaise Compaoré organized a game and in which he was a center forward. And they faked a penalty because Blaise Compaoré had to score. So they faked a penalty because he scored, he kicked the first time and lost. And the referee ordered, he said that the goalkeeper played a trick and he shot a second time and scored. Somebody too in China, you know very well, I'm talking about Mao Zedong. He had to swim across the Yangtze, to prove that he was still very acrobatic at his age. Now, if Fru Ndi should say that he is acrobatic at 73, 45, I think because he says the machines actually discovered that all his system, his organs were intact and even more acrobatic than somebody in his 50s. Well, I don't want to think it's a way to tell the people that he's still strong to continue running the SDF. But then the doctors would have even told him that it is time for you to stay at home since your health is failing you. But then some people will say even at 100, they can still rule.
And going further, Elie Smith, the chairman, voiced thanks to the party's executive members for pressing him to go on leave and go get the medical scan. Now, in other words, the executive members can now be breathing and heaving huge sighs of relief that, well, our chairman is in good health, and so there's no need to look for a flag bearer for the party at the upcoming presidential election.
Are you kidding? Is that what he said?
That's what the Post says, he said.
Now, I want to say something to Mr. Kejan Henry Atembe. He's my friend and colleague that I take an exception. I have seen the type of comparison that you're making with Fru Ndi. You cannot compare Fru Ndi with someone like Paul Biya. It's a shame because Paul Biya has destroyed this country. You cannot compare Fru Ndi with Mao Zedong, who killed 30 million Chinese. You cannot compare Fru Ndi with Blaise Compaoré. You have named a litany of despots and people who have ruined their countries respectively. Right. Fru Ndi is a Democrat. You could have compared.
No, I was not like comparing him to say,
all right,
well, in terms of governance.
Yeah.
I was just saying that in terms of, when they think it's fading out, they could use such a means to, tell the population that I'm still stronger enough. I'm not like comparing democracy and dictatorship.
You would have compared a man like Fru Ndi to someone like Raila Odinga, pro-democracy activist, not a despot, an inept person like Paul Biya.
Thanks, gentlemen. And right now we have Chairman Fru Ndi on the line too. Bamenda. Good morning, Chairman. Hello, Chairman. I think we have a little hitch with the phone. Good morning, Chairman. I guess we are going to have to play some gymnastics to get the telephone contact going through. But let's give it another try in a second. And let's come back. Fru Ndi says he's happy to have returned home.
Yeah.
Keja Henry.
Yep.
To resume the struggle for the liberation of Cameroonians from the grip of a BR regime that's virtually collapsing.
Good. You see, that is the beginning. In fact, when SDF...
So in other words, he went to do the medical checkups and everything to come back with renewed energy? With
renewed energy. You need to, because, you know, a lot of steam had been sapped out from the chairman, you know, checking your health to be able to confront or to continue the battle. You know, you cannot fight when you are not in your sound mind, sound soul, when you are not healthy enough. So I think he's come back and must continue the battle right up to the end. Remember, he said that it is the ultimate goal of the Social Democratic Front to be able to get to power.
Okay, I think this time is good enough. Good morning, Chairman. Hello, Chairman. Chairman Ni John Fru Ndi. I think we have a serious problem with the telephones this morning.
Hello.
Hey, good morning, Chairman.
Morning.
Oh, this is Canal English live from Douala, and the program is Toughtalk, Chairman. Thanks very much for accepting to share. It is called Toughtalk on Canal English broadcast live from Douala, Chairman.
Okay.
We gladly appreciate your sharing part of your time this morning with us. But let's get to business, Chairman. The Post newspaper quotes you as having said recently that your detractors should leave the SDF alone before it becomes too late. What exactly did you mean by saying that?
No, I'm not heard a single word that you're saying. The lines are not clear here.
Chairman John Fru Ndi, I'll try and make this correct, and then just hang on. We'll try and correct the telephone lines, and then I'll repeat the question to you. But yes, Chairman.
Yes, what question are you asking?
Okay, so in its Monday edition, the Post newspaper actually quotes you as, you know, telling your detractors to leave the SDF alone before it becomes too late. Was the Post correct in headlining that story?
Okay. Can you use another line?
Okay, we're going to get back to you in a minute, Chairman. Let's try and fix this, and then we'll get back to you. I'm not very sure why this is all getting so wrong. Can you get us now, Chairman?
Okay, thank you.
Hello? Hello? It's rather unfortunate. I think we're going to call you back later, Chairman. But let's continue the discussions, and we're with you, Henry. So we now go over to Elie Smith. Fru Ndi regrets that during his time away, tons of literature oozed on his person and the SDF, including literature from persons residing abroad, and he claims he has toiled very much for some of these individuals. Henry?
Yes, he had toiled, like Elie said, it's time to him that we can speak.
He actually refers to these unnamed individuals as ingrates.
Ingrates, he did not call names, but he said that those who are sitting out of the country and pouring filth on him should muster the courage. I quote what he said in the Post edition of Monday, to muster the courage and come and fight like him and receive gunshots like he did, rather than sending words out of the country to say that the SDF has not done anything. Because, no, remember, it is not an SDF fight. We should make a distinction. Fru Ndi has always stood for, or the SDF as a whole has always stood for federalism, and they don't refuse the fact. Even when they
what kind of federalism is it? 4-state or 2-state?
Yes, they are.
The Anglophone hardliners are insisting on a 2-state federation.
At that time, yes, but at that time the SDF was talking of 2-state federation. They stand by that. They mustered the courage one time to march to the presidency of the republic, and that is why he is saying that those who are speaking out of the country and insulting the SDF, which is not an SDF fight, by the way, should muster that courage and come and receive gunshots like they did.
And that's interesting, Elie Smith, because in passing he lambasts the unnamed individuals for forming governments without consulting Cameroonians back home.
Yes.
It's fair to say that.
No, it's fair to say that because, to be sincere, there's something that is also sickening and annoying when you have people who are abroad hurling insult or some type of insinuation against you. And those individuals, as we did it last week, some people, everybody has his or her own governments. You did prime minister of this, president of this. And that's the reason why even this, our nationalist movement of West Cameroon hasn't worked. Because it is true, for once, Fru Ndi was right when he said some people are there's a kind of profiteering network reaping from what is going on. But what I need to, if I could give him an advice to those who are members, is that he is a leader of a political party, for Christ's sake. He will not avoid people calling him names or insulting him. He will not avoid that. It is part of it, and he has to accept it. He needs to have the thick skin to withstand all those type of insults. But he also needs to understand that there is a need for a reform. But when I hear saying that the member of the executive pressed him to go abroad to have medical checks to come, which means that he has become already like Paul Biya, for example. That's good that Kejang named it, because, for example, what is the whole thing is if he feels that he's tired, let him leave the whole thing. And I think that the dynamics of things today, especially the demographics, are not in his favor. Because if it was the Fru Ndis of the 90s and early 2000s, these things in West Cameroon, he would have seen it, and he would have been at the forefront of it. If today there is this problem, when you have this problem of Wilbur rising up, it's simply because he reads, he understands, he has the courage more than some people. I think the other thing I may say to Fru Ndi is that he has to have the courage to go back to what he was, back to basics. Listen to the grassroots, rather than listen to the people who have grown fat because they have been 20 years as MPs, they have contracts in Yaoundé, and they don't want to fight again.
In other words, the chairman is just back from a month-long sojourn abroad. In fact, he tells you, the paper tells you that he actually undertook a medical checkup. You are charging the chairman of being myopic.
Yeah, he's myopic, sincerely speaking. Because if he weren't myopic, look at, there is something that affected me when this thing began in the Northwest region, where he went with Governor Lily African. People told him, Pa, you go home. Do you think that formally someone would have had that courage to say such a thing to Fru Ndi? No. Simply because the SDF did not react as fast as it had expected. And it is his fault because he is at the helms of the SDF. What he has to do now is that, sincerely speaking, let him look around those who are around with him and now try to say, I need people who are much more representative, young people who read what is going on, rather than enclaving himself with old men who are only busy following their contracts in Yaoundé.
Some of these young people you are mentioning, Elie Smith, are not based in Cameroon. And Kejang Henry, can Chairman John Fru Ndi do without the diaspora? Can he survive?
He might not survive without the diaspora. You know, the diaspora has a lot of contribution, especially as they lobby out of the country. And you know the strength of the diaspora in any revolution. And when you talk about the diaspora, it depends on where they have defined themselves. You know, generally in Western democracies. But then the diasporic contribution is coming, you know, the strength of it is coming from Europe and the US of A. You know, we cannot talk about Asia, because those who are in Asia even fending more for themselves. But I think the Social Democratic Front, or if not, John Fru Ndi in particular, should equally count on the diaspora. Remember that there's going to be the diasporic vote during the upcoming election, and he must count on them. Yes, because the diaspora must vote for the 2018 presidential election.
Is it must or may?
No, the law is clear about that, so we don't argue about it. So he needs to count on them.
And in a rather sarcastic tone, the chairman, Elie Smith, adds that a respected general worth the salt is one who gives orders at the war front and not from long distance. But the question I want to put to you is this, and you were almost coming to it. Did the chairman waste a golden opportunity when the Anglophone crisis erupted in October and began gathering flesh in November 2016?
Yeah, he really wasted a lot of golden opportunity.
To bounce back to fame? To
bounce back to fame, because remember, if you cannot defend your mother, your sister, against a bully, because the bully we have is this regime of Paul Biya. Your base is West Cameroon. if you were not able to stand at the forefront. It is true that at the onset of what happened, I understand he said he was in support of the movement of the lawyers and the teachers. But when the youth, you have a pool of West Cameroonian youth and Cameroonian youth who are not working. What did he say when, for example, Mancho BBC stood up against the corrupt cesspool, the corrupt mayor of the Lord Mayor of the Bamenda government of Bamenda Greater Council? I didn't see what he said. Nor did his close collaborators say anything. The only person who demarcated himself and who saved the SDF's image is Joseph Wiriba. People might not like Wiriba, but the fact that Wiriba stood up was not for Wiriba himself, but was for the SDF. Okay. And it is a shame to most SDF MPs who cannot stand up and say what is going in Cameroon is absolutely wrong. Okay. Saying it is not being unpatriotic. On the contrary, it's an act of patriotism to stand up and say no to a villain that is corrupting people, killing people, raping people like what happened in the... How long did he take to react to the vicious conduct of the Cameroonian security forces at the University of Buea? I think it took a long time.
Henry, can the chairman be likened to a child crying over spilled milk? Because his hands-off approach to the crisis actually facilitated his very own eclipsing by some Cameroonians in the diaspora, Anglophones in particular.
The milk has
been... Herberts and
the Bull Herberts and the others, the Tassangs, the Harmonies. Well, the milk has been spilled, and it is time to see if, because we might not be able to pick the liquid from the floor. I think it is time for a rebirth of thinking, a time for new thinking, for a new approach in handling the present crisis, which has somehow moved spiritual. Okay. And so the SDF would probably need another spiritual move to be able to reconquer the souls of those who have gone wild.
Elie Smith, and this, if it happened, it probably would be calamitous. As we speak, hard to verify information in our possession indicates that hardliners of the Anglophone cause are threatening to burn down Fru Ndi's Tarikon residence because he refused to order a walkout from Parliament at the June session of SDF MPs.
Yeah, that will be a mistake they will be doing. There's something we have to understand. While I criticize Fru Ndi, but we need to have this objectivity. You know, the problem with Fru Ndi and the SDF is that we are dealing with a very dishonest government that has never liked the SDF, and that they always have something in their quiver, which means that if they have an opportunity to name Fru Ndi and the SDF a different name, then ban it, they will do it. Which means that sometimes the man is walking on a tightrope. To burn down his house is an overstatement. Okay. What they would have done is that if they were to burn the houses of all the MPs in Anglophone Cameroon, that would be another thing. But as a Democrat, I will never advocate for violence, because violence begets violence. Okay. What is necessary is that people have to be proportionate. Fru Ndi has made some mistakes. Let's give him an opportunity for an amend in order for the SDF to be revived. Because as we stand, not the SDF, he himself. I think that the only thing, you know, we can be saying it till tomorrow. My take is that Fru Ndi has done a lot for this country. Fru Ndi has done a lot for the SDF. It is time for him to pass on the baton, as Tony Leon did with the Democratic Alliance in South Africa.
Unfortunately, we have tried everything humanly possible, but we cannot get in touch with SDF chieftain John Fru Ndi. We promise to come back on this subject in subsequent editions of Tough Talk, and of course, probably we'll be lucky then and get hook of the chairman himself. Gina Leke, welcome.
Thank you.
It's always different when you come on stage, right? You bring in some beauty, some new touch.
Wow.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So what's the buzz?
Well, the buzz, actually, not directly in Cameroon, but of course it's a matter that concerns Cameroon, Africa, and the world. Today would have Nelson Mandela, the hero, our legend, would have been 99 years old. Yes.
Could that have been possible?
Why not?
In this age and time?
Why not? There are people who have lived up to 100.
And you remind me, I didn't put on my Mandela T-shirt. I'll do that tomorrow.
Okay, no problem. So
for
yes,
the sake of honors.
so yes, today is his birthday. He was born on July 18, 1918, and the United Nations declared this day, July 18, to be celebrated as the Nelson Mandela Day, which is a day that is set aside to recognize some of the values Nelson Mandela stood for.
And that's rare, because very few Africans have the UN honoring them with entire days.
Exactly. I think that Mandela actually touched the world, sacrificing 27 years of his life to fight against apartheid in South Africa, and it did not just end in South Africa. He's a lesson to modern day democracy. He's a lesson for all of us, and he inspires us every day. But well, we are not going to be dwelling on the biography of Nelson Mandela today, but we are going to be talking on how has Africa in general and Cameroon learned from some of the values of Nelson Mandela. Right. I mean, should he be smiling in his grave, or should he be weeping that he sacrificed for nothing? So we are going to take the case of Cameroon. With your permission, Divine,
yes,
we are going to be analyzing different aspects. We are going to look at something like democracy, which he really stood for. I mean, some of the tenets of democracy, as we all know, include liberty, ability for people to make decisions for themselves. We have majority rule. We have a system where there is a rule of law and not individuals. When we look at the case of Cameroon, well, we can see that Cameroon has made some strides as far as democracy.
How much has it learned or copied from South Africa under Mandela?
Nothing. Well, I mean, when we look at, let's say we can take an example of the 1990 liberty laws of the press, which granted some degree of freedom to the press, and today we have a multiplicity of print and audiovisual media and some level of press freedom. And also we can also look at, well, ELECAM, an elections governing body. But I'll be very quick to say that
close to 400 political parties. That's ridiculous.
Exactly. But again, I would want to say very quickly that democracy in Cameroon knows a lot of shortcomings. I mean, when you look at a body like ELECAM, many people will say, okay, Cameroon created this body to oversee its elections. But again, there are others who are going to question that what powers does ELECAM has? I mean, a body like ELECAM should be independent and should be able to organize an election from beginning to start. It organizes the election.
Without resorting to government assistance.
Exactly. And it does not have the power to declare the elections. I think there's a shortcoming at that level. And also when you look at the management, the top authorities, you look at the president appointed, the president of the ELECAM appointed by the president of the republic, the board chair appointed, you realize that there's bound to be this kind of string, like you have to answer to me and not to the people. So there is a shortcoming at that level. Again, let's look at our parliament. Some people have described them as a group of hand clappers.
A rubber stamp.
That is
rubber stamping institution.
Yeah, you see, they go in for sessions every day, and there are heinous crimes being committed, and they remain mute. I'll take the example of the Anglophone crisis, the week of the Anglophone crisis. A lot of people were arrested, and we remember what happened in the University of Buea. Students were molested, girls were raped, and they were quiet until a certain Honorable Joseph Weber stood up.
Emerged from the blues to champion the cause.
Exactly, and he said to him it was unacceptable, and yes, it was unacceptable because, I mean, the parliament is there, it's supposed to represent people, and if there are crimes being committed against it, it's just but normal for them to decry some of these acts. Yeah. Look at Ayapo, a Supreme Court judge, arrested. In fact, some people said hijacked and taken to prison. I mean, these are things that I think that maybe Nelson Mandela, these are some of the values, you understand, where there should be the rule of law, that the parliament is supposed to come out and say this is wrong and it should not be happening. So that is it. And today that we are celebrating Nelson Mandela Day, I think it's an opportunity for us to improve on some of these aspects facing
especially governance. And some
yes,
say
governance.
It is high time Cameroon emulated the Peace and Reconciliation Committee that South Africa put in place to forgive perpetrators of apartheid back then, Elie.
Of course, yes, you know, in a democracy, one reason why people love Mandela is that people used to think only Jesus Christ can do that, but a human being did it. That is to forgive. So we need to have this tendency to forgive. And I think that as far as Cameroon is concerned, if Mandela is in his grave, he is going to be turning his grave, because we are not really emulated, but we are not going to be hard with Cameroon, because it's going to be like a child who has a stunted growth. We are trying our petty steps in terms of democracy, because Cameroon is not what was under Amadou Ahidjo.
All right.
But it's not also better. We are not going to say gain a clean sheet to Paul Biya, because he has to do more and he is doing very less.
Gina?
Yes, and equally he spoke of reconciliation, just like Elie Smith said. And when we look at South Africa today, Mandela should be turning in his grave. I mean, look at the crisis plaguing the ANC, a party which has led to his own victory. And when we look at, I want to really especially talk about xenophobic attacks. I mean, it's terrible.
Recurrent every now and then.
Recurrent now and then.
But that's probably because some people blame Mandela for, despite becoming South Africa's first black president in the post-apartheid era, he failed to do enough for the blacks in South Africa, and now they're the ones chasing other blacks from coming to get their job.
Yes, he failed to do enough because maybe he was trying to see, I mean, to try to build a community where people can live in harmony, love, despite the fact that the whites ill-treated the blacks. He felt that there was a need for reconciliation and for all of them to live in peace. So if the blacks are coming up today, what you should understand is they are not killing, but they are killing their own African brothers.
Right.
And to me,
Zimbabweans, Nigerians, and so on.
To me, it's unacceptable, because, I mean, we should have this liberty of movement. I mean, if I'm trained as a doctor and I find myself in another country and I can offer my services, I don't see why I need to be killed because I am not a national of that country. I think what is going on in South Africa, it's wrong. We condemn it in very strong terms, and we hope that today, that is Nelson Mandela's day, the people can really remember who this legend was, what he stood for, and stop the killing of their fellow brothers.
Thanks for coming.
You're welcome.
I put on my Mandela t-shirt especially for you tomorrow.
I don't have. Maybe you should give my own.
And just to remind our viewers, I'll bring it tomorrow. Gina, thanks for coming once again. Just to remind our viewers that at about 1:30 p.m. this afternoon, we'll have a special Mandela program for you. It's called Winnie Mandela, Saint or Sinner. And later on today in the night, we'll have a whole profile on Nelson Mandela himself that will span about 51 minutes, all to take you back to those days of glory, those days when Africans stood up and shouted as one person, Mandela, may the spirit live on. Elie Smith, let's come back to you and try to move out of this. We're probably not going to tackle our second sticky point today, which is very important because we're looking at the role that Cameroon's former colonial masters, including France, Britain, Germany, and as well as the world guarantor of peace and democracy, the United States of America, have played in the evolution of the protracting Anglophone crisis. Let's come back to one question we didn't touch on. It still concerns Fru Ndi. Elie Smith, Fru Ndi says, I mean, if the Post didn't take him out of context, he says that at the next NEC meeting, that's the National Executive Committee conclave, the SDF will define and elaborate a roadmap for Anglophones. Sounds like selling after the market.
Yes, sounds like selling after the market, but they say it's better late than never. So I think if at the long last, because of the inspiration of one man, Joseph Wilbur, they have discovered that they were in slumber, they have now woken up. It's a very good thing. And then there's nothing bad in that.
Okay. And Henry, you've just joined us. Chairman John Fru Ndi's utterances, as quoted by the Post, follow his recent declaration on the British Broadcasting Corporation, the BBC, that he intends to carry the party into the 2018 presidential poll.
That is the objective of any political party that is created, to win power. It's not only the SDF.
Like an astute politician, and that's exactly the question, Henry. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Come on.
It is a chronological unfolding of events. He goes to London, announces his intention to run for president of Cameroon, and then comes back home and tells the Post newspaper that he went to India and his health was fine.
Yes.
That's calculated.
Politicians are always like that, so you will not blame him to be like other politicians. That is the game of politics. We've had politicians who go out of the country and announce, issues about their country in foreign media, but then they don't even have the courtesy to come back home and even talk to the local media. At least he has even spoken to the Post, and the Post was nosy. I think if we too had that courage, would have probably waited for him at the airport to catch him. But, well, he slipped off our eyes. But then the game is politics, and that is what he's playing.
Elie Smith, is he a winning politician anymore? John Fru Ndi?
No, I think he is a winning politician. You know the thing, I am not like people, because what have killed the competitors of Fru Ndi was that they underrated Fru Ndi, they underestimated him, and then Fru Ndi turned out and humiliated them. If you can count the number of people that he has, in code, politically killed. So, but once again, I stand by what I have been saying, right? Fru Ndi has done a lot for this country. Okay. And I think he will go down in history.
Yeah, it's already gone down.
Should he decide now that I'm tired, I'm 76 years old. When you look at Obama, when you look at the Prime Minister of Canada, when you look at Macron, then you come here. This is one of the paradoxes of Africa. We are the youngest continent in the world, so we claim. We only have old people at the head of our affairs. You have the man of, is it Elie? I forgot how to pronounce his name, the president of Tunisia. He's 89 years old. You have Paul Biya of Cameroon, about 80. Robert Gabriel Mugabe, 83. He says he wants to rule 92. He will rule for 100 years. So I think Mr. Fru Ndi or Bouteflika, who is really that's really a kind of humiliation.
It's a catastrophe.
Right. It's a catastrophe.
But I think
in a wheelchair.
I think Fru Ndi, well, he said what he has said, because they are if you read within the lines, when he goes and says, I will take my party, if that was he said at the BBC, which means that he is not even considering of leaving the head of the SDF. But whereas, as a Democrat, they need to be thinking. I even heard one day that one of his sons was even telling him that he has to leave that thing.
That was on his birthday.
That was on his birthday.
One of his birthdays.
One of his birthdays. If his son can say it, then I think it's high time for him to allow a democratic level playing field to take place during the convention. And if he wins, correct. But if he loses, they should not play games for him to stay. And then the other thing, as I've said, I will repeat, that Fru Ndi needs to cut away with those praise singers around him who are hiding or using him to win their contracts in Bamenda. He needs to rejuvenate the party. The party needs to be a reflection of the current demographics of Cameroon.
But Henry Gage and some have said the SDF will fall down, collapse like a pack of cards if Fru Ndi left its helm to someone else.
Yes, that is the reading on the wall, because they have already understood that there are some people who came into who moved into some political groups. I don't want to take the case of the SDF alone, because of their selfish interest and not putting the interests of the nation in front. And I think that is exactly the reading he has made, because there are those who came into the party, they reaped, and then they left. Without taking the party at heart and the problem of the Cameroonians. When you look at some manifestos, or rather the slogans of some political parties, I'm very conversant with the slogan of the SDA, which says "Power to the people."
You must be, Henry.
Equal opportunity for all, which means.
But the fact that he stays at the helm of the party dismisses the equal opportunity connotation in the slogan.
Equal opportunity is not for the party, but for Cameroonians. Equal opportunity in governance,
equal opportunity in management, in accessing the SDF helm,
facilities, equal opportunity in accessing the SDF helm, which is open, as I understand, because the convention gave criteria for anybody. I remember, Elie, you received the
challenger of John Fru Ndi.
The challenger of John Fru Ndi, which is a normal thing, because you talked about the Democratic Party. the probably 18 positions that have been advertised with their vices and so on, it is a democratic party, and he who plays better will probably win.
Okay, I think this is where we are going to call it quits for this other edition of Tough Talk. Thanks especially to Njilo Donald, who was on the machines, Emmanuel Bevirka, the eternal producer and cameraman for Tough Talk. Sitting behind there was Tabitha Helena, who was actually, I don't know, supervising or something. We got Gina Leke on the burst, and of course we failed, woefully failed, and please kindly accept all our apologies for the faulty communication lines. We couldn't get in touch with, get in touch audibly with SDF Chairman John Fru Ndi. We also could not get in touch with our Yaoundé correspondent, Tabby Clarkson. We hope to do better when we come back on Thursday. Please keep the comments flowing, both on our Facebook page as well as on the YouTube channel created by Elie Smith. All you need to do is type Tough Talk on Canal English, hit enter, and you'll see all the videos unfolding. Thanks once again for sharing part of your precious time today with us. See you next time, and God bless you all.